Some of you aren't lazy. You're just tired of breaking promises to yourself. That opening statement, that feeling of recognition is really where we need to begin today.
Mm,
Because if that sentence hit you, if it resonated somewhere deep, you know that feeling. It's a kind of profound exhaustion.
yeah, it is.
And it's not the exhaustion that comes from working too hard. It's something else. It's the feeling of being stuck in a cycle.
The start and crash cycle.
Exactly. You start strong, you're full of energy, and then you crash. And you feel like you just lack this fundamental internal with integrity.
Well, you might call it that. Or you might just feel like a failure. You might use a word like lazy or, unmotivated.
Right. But what the source material we looked at suggests is that it's something much deeper, something far more psychologically taxing.
It's a crisis of trust.
A crisis of trust. Explain that.
It's a crisis of self-trust. It's the sheer weariness that comes from self-betrayal, from constantly letting the version of you in this very moment.
The one who wants comfort.
The one who wants comfort, the one who wants ease. Letting that version of you veto the plans that your best self, your future self, made.
That's sustained internal conflict. I
Yeah.
mean, it must be devastating to any kind of forward progress.
It is. It's completely devastating. And that's what leads us to what we're calling the inner shift.
The inner shift.
Yeah. And this isn't just about, tweaking a few habits or finding a new productivity app. This is a required fundamental change in how we view the entire concept of discipline.
Because that word comes with so much baggage.
So much. I mean, for decades, maybe even centuries, discipline has been framed as restriction, deprivation.
White-knuckle self-control.
Exactly. It conjures up these images of suffering, of, fighting your most basic human desires. And that right there is why so many efforts fail.
Because you're starting a war with yourself.
You're starting a war. And if your entire foundation for change is internal warfare, you are absolutely guaranteed to exhaust your mental and emotional reserves. It's just a matter of time.
So the key move here, this inner shift, is to recognize that we have to pivot. We have to pivot dramatically away from that old model.
We need to shift the entire foundation of effort. Moving from discipline defined as, let's say, punishment, to discipline defined as purpose.
From punishment to purpose. That's a huge change in perspective.
It's everything. We are reframing the entire relationship you have with necessary effort. And, the body of work we explored for this is profoundly uninterested in making you feel guilty.
About past failures, you mean?
Exactly. It's not about that. It's about unlocking your full potential by giving you a more compassionate, a more sustainable, and critically, a more effective framework for action.
So is the difference between thinking, ugh, I have to suffer through this restriction, and what?
And understanding I choose this action because of the specific outcome it creates for the person I actually want to be. It's a choice, not a punishment.
And that outcome, that alignment, that's really what we're going to be focusing on today. Our mission here is to explore the material that doesn't just redefine self-discipline.
No.
It actually gives you a powerful, actionable toolkit, a way to align your daily behaviors, the small stuff,
That tiny stuff.
with your highest values and your biggest goals. Because the promise that the sources hold out, it's really compelling.
It is.
When you successfully make this inner shift, discipline stops being this heavy burden. It stops being an inhibitor.
And it starts becoming.
It starts becoming, as the source so eloquently puts it, a foundation for your freedom. The freedom to move past that perpetual frustration and actually live the focused, intentional life you've always set out for yourself.
It really is the ultimate paradox of human performance, isn't it? We all want this boundless freedom.
Right.
But the only way to get it, the only way to find it is by choosing your constraints wisely. You have to proactively choose the boundaries that serve your long-term vision.
Okay, so let's get into the core of this foundational shift. And I think to do that, we have to start with the quote that it dominates so much of the thinking around this.
You're talking about Jim Rohn.
I am. We must all suffer one of two things: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. It's brilliant. It's kind of unavoidable.
It is. It sets the stakes immediately. You have a choice between two kinds of suffering.
Right. And you have to choose one.
You do. It's a profound truth because it acknowledges that life is active. You can't opt out. You are always paying a cost, whether it's the cost of action or the cost of, inaction.
But this is where the inner shift comes in and really challenges that traditional view.
It does. It challenges how we interpret the nature of that pain, the pain of discipline.
What do you mean?
Well, traditionally, we define that pain as immediate deprivation. The misery of saying no to a pleasure right now, the donut, the extra hour of sleep, the easy distraction.
Okay.
But our source material invites us to reinterpret that cost. What if the pain of discipline isn't this awful, grinding misery?
What if it's just discomfort?
Exactly. What if it's simply the quiet, momentary discomfort of choosing to honor a long-term commitment over a short-term gratification? It's not deprivation, it's delayed fulfillment.
That distinction right there is where the shift gets its power, because it completely reframes the emotional landscape of the choice.
Completely. That old, miserable definition discipline is restriction, it's punishment, it's suffering. That's what causes so many people to stall out, especially when you're engaged in complex, long-term intellectual projects.
Because who can sustain a feeling of suffering day in and day out?
Nobody, just burnout. But the new definition, it's truly transformative. It flips the script entirely.
So discipline is not restriction.
It's not. It's about respect.
Respect for who?
Respect for your future self, for the
Yeah.
trajectory you're on, and it's not punishment, it's permission.
Permission to do what?
Permission to build the knowledge base or the skill set or the life you actually desire. And finally, it's not suffering. It's a conscious choice you make in service of your purpose.
When you internalize that, I mean, the inherent negativity of restriction just gets replaced by this positive charge of intentionality.
That's it. You're no longer being forced. You are choosing.
And this reframe, this positive reframe, feels absolutely essential for the world we live in now.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because we're effectively living in an addiction to ease.
That's a great way to put it. An addiction to ease. Everything is designed to be frictionless, instant, and maximally stimulating.
We're constantly sold the quick fix, the hack that lets you bypass the actual learning curve, the promise that motivation will just materialize out of thin air and carry you to the finish line without any effort.
And because of that, if something feels genuinely hard,
Like synthesizing dense research papers or debugging a complex piece of code.
right, if it feels hard, our first instinct is to think we must be doing it wrong.
This shouldn't be so difficult.
Exactly. But that expectation of constant ease and instant results is, well, it's structurally hostile to the sustained effort that mastery requires.
But what's the truth then?
The source material is adamant on this point. Transformation, especially intellectual transformation, it rarely arrives in some dramatic burst of insight.
It's not a lightning strike.
No, it comes in quiet, consistent effort. And that quiet, often boring, often repetitive effort is the exact opposite of the instant gratification loops we're conditioned to seek out.
We wait for the feeling of inspiration to hit us before we start.
We do, but the evidence is overwhelmingly clear. The positive, satisfied, successful feeling, it almost always follows the action. It doesn't precede it.
So you have to act first to get the feeling you think you need to act.
That's the paradox. The moment you demand instant feedback or constant stimulation or, continuous high motivation, you are basically guaranteeing failure when you face a complex learning challenge.
Why? Why is that a guarantee?
Because the work that truly changes you, the deep, difficult intellectual labor, it is inherently repetitive. It requires a significant cognitive load, and it often lacks any immediate external validation.
No one is going to pop up and give you a gold star for reading a difficult chapter.
Not at all. It requires moving beyond that initial spark of inspiration. And this transition brings us perfectly to the most crucial psychological framework the sources offer.
Okay.
It's the idea of discipline as an agreement. If there is one singular insight you take away from our whole discussion, it's this. Discipline is an agreement you forge and maintain with the future version of yourself.
I find this idea incredibly powerful because it psychologically removes the decision from your immediate, impulsive, short-term desire.
It takes the you of right now out of the driver's seat.
Yes. When you're sitting down to study a difficult topic after a long day, your tired, present self will always scream for comfort. It will always vote for Netflix.
Always.
But with this framework, you're not asking your tired self to commit. You're asking your tired self to simply honor the contract.
The contract you signed with the future you. The one who needs that certification, who needs to master that skill, or who needs to present that complex synthesis next month.
You're acting on behalf of someone else who just happens to be you.
Exactly. It's choosing action not based on how you feel right now, which, as you said, is often depleted, resistant, looking for the path of least resistance, but based on who you want to become.
And that requires a powerful moment of foresight. You have to be able to mentally pull that desired future identity into the present moment.
You do. You have to give that choice weight and meaning that transcends your current mood.
The sources provide some excellent, really concrete examples of just how small these pivot points are.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to think of discipline in these grand, sweeping terms, like a week-long isolation retreat to write, or a 12-hour workday. But the real transformation hinges on these tiny micro-decisions.
It's about the small daily choices that determine whether you accelerate or decelerate your progress. For you, as a learner, think about it.
Okay.
It's the small choice to rise early and spend 30 minutes reviewing notes instead of hitting snooze and then rushing into the day.
It's writing that one complex paragraph, even when the logic feels messy and the words aren't flowing.
Yes. It's finishing the deep reading of a dense, necessary text instead of just defaulting to a summary video online.
It's choosing to spend the afternoon, organizing the research you've already gathered, which is tedious, rather than immediately seeking the comfort of a new distraction.
These small acts, they're not about brute force. They're not about suffering. They are about immediate, low-stakes alignment.
You're just ensuring that the actions you take today are directly serving the values you claim to hold for tomorrow.
And this brings us right back to that trade-off that Jim Rohn highlighted. We have to be brutally honest with ourselves about the cost of long-term fulfillment.
The cost is real.
It is. The source material emphasizes that long-term mastery and intellectual fulfillment often require trading short-term comfort for clarity and short-term ease for meaningful effort.
If you consistently choose comfort and ease when you're faced with an intellectual challenge,
You're essentially pre-signing your future regret. It's a choice you're making in the present that guarantees future pain.
that clarity you mentioned, that feels like the emotional payoff.
It is.
When you make a decision that's rooted in alignment, say, choosing to synthesize those complex research notes instead of watching a documentary, the short-term discomfort of the high cognitive load is profoundly offset by the clarity that you are actively building towards your ultimate goal.
It just feels intrinsically better.
Yeah. And more sustainable than choosing to work purely out of guilt or fear of some external deadline.
It shifts the entire narrative. When your decisions are rooted in the version of yourself you intend to be, the knowledgeable, capable, disciplined, expert-sustained effort transforms. It becomes an act of self-expression, not self-deprivation.
And that really is the critical distinction that separates that grinding misery from truly transformative, sustained effort.
It's the whole game.
Let's pivot now to the topic that trips up nearly everyone. I mean, especially those of us embarking on large, long-term intellectual projects. Motivation.
Ah, yes. The great myth of motivation.
It's a myth. We're culturally conditioned to treat it as a prerequisite for action. The thinking is, if I don't feel motivated, I just can't start.
And that very thought, that dependency, is what arrests the progress of so many brilliant and curious learners. It's lethal to long-term success.
What's the inherent flaw in it?
The flaw is that motivation is an emotional state. And emotional states are, they're notoriously volatile, they're flimsy.
They change with the weather.
They change with your blood sugar levels, the weather, a rude email you just got, or how well you slept last night. The sources define motivation perfectly. It is a spark.
A spark.
A brilliant, exciting flash of light and heat that can, initiate the process, but it's fundamentally transient. It fades.
And if you're waiting for that spark to arrive every single morning to get you out of bed and to your desk,
you will spend the vast majority of your life waiting in the dark. It's that simple.
So what's the alternative? If we can't rely on the spark, what's the structural necessity?
It's discipline. And in this analogy, discipline is the engine.
The engine. I like that.
The engine doesn't care if the weather is terrible. It doesn't care if the driver's feeling uninspired or if the road ahead is long and, frankly, boring.
The engine is just designed to start.
To start, to maintain motion, and to execute the planned trajectory. That discipline is what carries you through the inevitable, vast middle ground of any project.
That's when motivation doesn't show up.
It never shows up in the middle. The engine is what keeps you moving through the boredom, through the resistance, through the confusing complexity of the research, and maybe most importantly, through self-doubt.
This feels like a crucial distinction for you, the learner. Because you might get that intense burst of motivation, that spark to master a new coding language or synthesize an entire field of research.
Of course. You get excited, you buy 20 books on the topic, and you read the first chapter of each one in the first week.
And then they sit on the shelf.
They sit on the shelf.
Yeah.
Because true knowledge retention, skill acquisition, mastery, that requires the disciplined, consistent effort. It requires the engine showing up every day.
The engine is what keeps you reviewing flashcards for the 100th time.
Or writing tedious but necessary documentation for your code. Or revising a complex argument for the 10th time even when the text feels dense and the learning curve feels impossibly steep.
It's the engine that has to keep firing long after that initial excitement, that first rush of adrenaline wears off. That first burst of intensity is thrilling, but you're saying it's cheap.
It is cheap. Sustainable, transformative success, whether it's in fitness or finance or intellectual mastery, is built entirely on the mundane, quiet, strategic commitment that comes after the excitement has faded.
Which brings us to what I think is the most common misunderstanding the sources address head on.
Which is?
People mistake discipline for extreme intensity.
Oh, yes, all the time. They think discipline means you have to run a marathon every day or force yourself into an 18-hour workday, sacrificing sleep and sanity.
The hustle culture idea of discipline.
Exactly. But the sources define effective discipline very differently. It is not extreme effort once. It's defined as small effort repeated often.
That is such a relieving and powerful paradigm shift for people like me who suffer from that all-or-nothing mindset.
It's a trap.
It is. We're culturally conditioned to confuse the grand, heroic, self-sacrificing gesture with an effective strategy. We burn out because we try to go 100% or we do nothing.
But what the source material advocates for is the realization that you don't need to do everything at once.
You just need to do something consistently.
Something. Consistently. Think about the dramatic long-term impact of this strategic persistence. If your goal is to synthesize 100 academic papers, the idea of doing that in one weekend is paralyzing. It's also ineffective.
You won't retain anything.
Nothing, but the small effort repeated often is. I will read one abstract and write a 5-sentence summary of its main thesis every single morning.
That's manageable.
It's manageable. And that 5-minute consistent effort yields 365 abstracts summarized a year later. That results in an unparalleled depth of synthesis. A 5-minute session of language study beats none. A single, well-researched paragraph written per day becomes a fully developed thesis over time.
So this highlights that the crucial element isn't the quantity of the effort in any given day, it's the quality of the commitment itself.
Yes.
And the sources introduce a word here that I find far more meaningful than intensity.
Integrity.
Integrity.
Integrity, as it's defined here, just means acting in alignment with the promise you made to yourself the day before.
It's about follow-through.
It's about following through on the small agreement you consciously forged with your future self. If you promise that future self one abstract review and you do that one abstract review, you have acted with integrity.
And this is where the self-trust cycle begins.
It's the beginning and the end. That repeated integrity, that commitment to consistent follow-through is what builds results. But more fundamentally, it builds self-trust. It's the small, daily, repetitive proof that you are, in fact, who you say you are.
So if I commit to deliberately practicing a complex skill for just 20 minutes every morning, say tackling a challenging math concept or trying to understand a confusing political theory, the 20 minutes done with integrity is exponentially more valuable.
And less psychologically taxing.
Than 3 hours of panicked, intense, last-minute work driven purely by external deadlines or fear.
Without a doubt. The panicked, intense work is reactive. It's driven by external pressure. The 20 minutes of integrity is proactive. It's driven by internal purpose and respect for your own cognitive progress.
And only one of those builds genuine, sustainable expertise.
And the confidence that comes with it.
It also taps into the cognitive benefits of repetition, right? When we focus on intensity, we often exhaust our working memory, and we fail to consolidate what we've learned.
That's a key point. The small effort repeated often. Strategy allows for memory consolidation. It allows for myelination, the strengthening of the neural pathways.
So you're literally building the skill into your brain.
You are, and eventually it helps induce a flow state because the task becomes familiar and manageable. It's the difference between cramming for a test and actually achieving mastery.
You're reducing the intensity, so you reduce the cognitive load.
Which allows the brain to efficiently build habit pathways. If your daily reading goal is 50 pages, that feels overwhelming to your brain.
Insurmountable on a busy day.
Right. But if your goal is 2 pages of deep analytical reading and taking notes, that is sustainable. And that sustainability guarantees retention.
Okay, so we've established the engine, which is purpose, and the fuel, which is integrity and consistency. But what happens when you set the purpose, you're committed to integrity, and you still can't get off the couch?
The practical reality.
The practical reality. So now we move into the application. And the sources introduce this powerful, almost contrarian concept. We do not need superhuman willpower.
We don't. In fact, relying on it is a losing strategy. What we need instead is foresight.
Foresight.
This is the genius of the toolkit we're about to unpack. Foresight means we stop relying on sheer brute force, which, as we know, is a finite and easily depleted resource.
It runs out.
It always runs out. Instead, we start designing a structure that minimizes the need for that conscious, effortful willpower in the first place.
So you're planning for your own weakness.
You're planning for your own humanity. Foresight means recognizing the psychological battleground before the resistance even starts and proactively setting up your environment to guarantee success. You need a structure that helps you move even when conditions are imperfect or, your internal battery is low.
This connects directly to that psychological concept of decision fatigue.
Hmm.
Willpower is truly a finite resource, like a battery, as you said. And every decision we make all day, from what to wear to which email to open first, it just drains that battery.
It does. And by the time we get to the complex, cognitively demanding tasks we've set for ourselves...
The battery is dead.
Exactly. So foresight is just smart energy management. Instead of draining the battery and making all these micro decisions about when or how to start a task, you preload the environment.
You install guardrails.
Guardrails, automatic guides, anything that steers you toward the right path automatically, minimizing the need for conscious effort. Let's dig into the practical tools that help us master this.
Okay, tool number 1. This one is fantastic for just generating that initial momentum. It's the 2-minute rule.
So simple, but so effective. The rule is, if a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it now.
Don't put it on a list. Don't think about it.
Just do it. The psychological genius of this rule isn't just about the time you save on that specific 2-minute task.
Look, is it then?
The real power is that it leverages momentum and it bypasses the cognitive resistance we call high activation energy.
Activation energy, the energy it takes to start.
Yes. For any task, the most difficult part is often just beginning. The brain resists the inertia of starting something new.
But if a task, like say, filing that PDF article you just downloaded, or clearing the physical clutter from your desk, if it takes less than 2 minutes, the internal resistance is almost zero.
It's minimal. The brain registers the task as trivially easy. You just override that procrastination instinct.
For a learner, this could be invaluable. It could mean immediately naming and tagging a key research paper so you can find it later.
Or drafting the subject line and the first sentence of a difficult email you need to send to a mentor.
Or just running the quick update on your coding software so it's ready to go tomorrow.
You don't deliberate, you just act. And so often, the mere act of completing that tiny 2-minute task lowers the mental activation energy for the next much larger task you have to face. You've broken the inertia, you're in motion.
Okay, next strategy. This one addresses the immense psychological resistance we feel when we're facing those huge, intimidating goals, the ones that stop us dead in our tracks. This is shrinking the task.
This is so important. The human brain, when it's facing an enormous, complex task like synthesize a year's worth of economic data.
Or complete the second draft of my dissertation.
Right. It will instinctively trigger an avoidance response. The goal feels too big, the cognitive load is too high, and failure just feels too likely.
So the advice from the source material is surgical.
It is. Don't wait to feel ready. Just start. And the focus has to be on this mantra. Small steps beat no steps.
So if the daunting goal is writing a massive research chapter, the shrunken task is outline 3 subheadings.
Perfect. Or just open the document and write 1 sentence.
If the goal is learning a complex coding library, the shrunken task is successfully compile the Hello World example.
You're just reducing the stakes so significantly that the brain says, fine, that won't hurt. It requires almost no energy. And that's the critical point. Once you are in motion, once the cognitive machinery is actually running, it's immensely easier to keep going. The difference between 0 words written and 50 words written is not 50 words.
It's the infinite distance between paralysis and action.
Right. The goal of the shrink is not to finish the task. It's merely to start the machine.
And finally, we get to the core of this toolkit, which is comprehensive friction management. This is the art of environmental design, and it works in 2 counterintuitive directions.
Absolutely. We have to become strategic saboteurs of our old bad habits and strategic facilitators of our new good ones.
We must reduce friction for the habits we want.
And create friction for the habits we want to stop.
So let's start with reducing friction for good habits. The idea is to make the desired path the one of least resistance. You're anticipating that your willpower battery will be exhausted.
Exactly. For the intellectual worker, this means preloading your learning environment. If your goal is to write first thing in the morning, then the night before, you make sure your computer is already open to the document.
The bibliography is pulled up.
A glass of water is sitting next to the keyboard. If your goal is to spend an hour synthesizing complex data, make sure the analysis software is already running and the relevant data sets are loaded before you finish work.
You're removing all those tiny, frustrating points of resistance that the tired morning brain will use as an excuse to procrastinate. Oh, I have to find the file.
The computer needs to update, all of
Yeah.
those little things. You are stacking the deck so completely in your favor that the right choice becomes virtually the only choice that requires minimal effort.
You're leveraging our natural human tendency toward laziness, but you're channeling it into productivity.
And then we just apply the same genius in reverse. We start creating friction for bad habits. If we make the good habits effortless, we must make the negative, distracting habits nearly impossible, or at least very annoying.
This is critical for the learner persona, because our greatest enemy is often the digital landscape, social media, irrelevant news, those deep dives into unproductive rabbit holes.
So if the bad habit is mindless scrolling on your phone, the source recommends radical action. Don't just put the phone on silent.
What do?
You log out of the most distracting apps after every single use. You move the phone into a physically inconvenient location.
Like a lockbox in another room.
A lockbox, a drawer in the kitchen, anywhere that's not right next to you. If the destructive habit is constantly checking email while you're trying to do deep analysis,
Which kills focus.
utterly. The friction might be physically logging out of your email client on your computer and uninstalling the mobile app. The goal is to introduce just enough physical or technical effort between you and the undesirable behavior.
That you gain a crucial moment of pause.
A moment of pause and consciousness. That's it.
That moment is where foresight wins over impulse. If I have to walk across the office, find the key to the lockbox, open the drawer, and manually relog into the app, that's maybe 3 extra seconds. But that 3 seconds of deliberate friction gives the rational, value-aligned part of my brain enough time to interject and ask, wait, why am I doing this? Is this serving the agreement I made with my future self?
And often, the answer is no, and you turn around and go back to work. This careful cycle of environmental and structural design is what allows us to succeed consistently without relying on some heroic, unsustainable amount of willpower.
And that consistent success brings us back full circle to identity.
It always does. These habits, good and bad, they reinforce who you believe you are.
By consistently choosing the easy aligned path, you stop identifying as someone who struggles with effort.
And you start identifying as someone who is disciplined, who is focused, who is trustworthy. You become that person through your actions.
Okay, moving into the emotional and psychological heart of this inner shift, we encounter what is maybe the most profound concept in all the source material. It defines self-discipline as self-respect in motion.
That phrase, it's incredibly dense with psychological meaning. It merges the abstract concept of effort with the fundamental emotional need for self-regard.
What does that mean, in motion?
It means that when you consistently act with discipline, you are quite literally demonstrating to yourself through verifiable behavior that you value your future self and your goals enough to invest in them right now. It's an active demonstration of your internal worth.
It's not just a belief, it's an action.
It's a belief proven by action. And the psychological mechanism at play here directly addresses that crisis of trust we identified at the very beginning.
The self-betrayal.
Right. Every single time you keep a promise to yourself, whether it's reading one abstract or getting up when the alarm first rings, you are actively feeding your subconscious mind a data point. And that data point is, I can trust me.
Wow.
This is the absolute foundation of true sustainable confidence. If you constantly tell yourself you'll complete a difficult task or stick to a research schedule, and then you consistently fail to show up, your unconscious mind logs you as unreliable.
It learns not to trust you.
It learns not to trust you. And that persistent internal narrative of unreliability is the single largest block to long-term success and high achievement.
But when you consistently show up, even for the tiny things,
You build an internal, unshakable reservoir of trust. You become your own most reliable resource.
and the confidence that results from this cycle, it's radically different from the performative confidence we often see.
Oh, totally different.
It's not the kind based on external achievement or loud bravado or constantly comparing yourself to others. It's grounded, it's internalized.
Absolutely. It's not the external confidence that says, I know I can succeed because I'm better than everyone else. It is the deeply grounded confidence that states simply, I do what I say I'll do.
It's based entirely on verifiable, repeatable evidence of your own personal integrity.
And that grounded trust, because it's built on your own actions and not on external circumstances, it cannot be taken away from you.
Not by external failure or setbacks or competition.
No, it is your most durable strength.
However, the sources remind us of a fundamental truth. Even with the best systems and the highest self-respect, discipline can fracture. It breaks.
It always does at some point.
And the most common reason for this breakdown is disconnecting from the why.
The internal meaning. It's the high-octane fuel for the engine. If you're just going through the motions of discipline, waking up early, doing the deep work, sticking to the schedule, but you can no longer articulate why you're enduring this.
It becomes a slog.
It degrades into meaningless drudgery. The purpose has faded into mere task management.
So the solution isn't always finding a new purpose, but constant reconnection.
Constant reconnection and articulation. You have to continuously ask yourself, what is the purpose behind this practice? Why am I enduring this particular struggle?
You have to remind yourself that you're studying this complex field to solve a specific problem in the world.
Or that you're writing to articulate a fundamental truth you believe in, or you're networking to unlock a specific opportunity. If you forget that, then the immediate present pain of the discipline inevitably outweighs the vague long-term reward.
When your actions are rooted in that deeper articulated meaning, the internal perception of the struggle, it transforms completely.
It does. The source uses a powerful, almost spiritual word here. The struggle becomes sacred.
Sacred.
It transforms from mere suffering into a form of devotion. Devotion to that deeper purpose. Devotion to the version of yourself you are actively striving to become. It's no longer just ticking an item off a list. It's an act of deep allegiance to your future vision.
Okay, let's bring it back down to earth for a minute. We're fallible human beings. We're going to have off days. We will hit snooze. We will revert to the path of least resistance. We will skip the research session.
Inevitably.
And many people take those inevitable slips as definitive, fatal proof of their personal inadequacy, which leads them to abandon the whole effort and restart that cycle of self-betrayal.
And that interpretation, that a single slip means you are a failure, is fatal to long-term change. It's a dead end.
So what's the reframe?
The sources offer a critical one. Those slips are not failure. They are feedback.
Feedback.
Every time you slip, you gain invaluable data. Data about where your system failed, where your friction management wasn't strong enough, or where your internal resistance is highest. It's a diagnostic tool, not a moral judgment.
So the ultimate goal isn't perfection.
Perfection is a psychological trap. It doesn't exist. The ultimate goal is return.
Return.
The true measure of your self-discipline isn't whether you maintain a perfect streak for 30 days. It's whether you possess the resilience to return to the work, return to the promise, and return to the version of you that's worth showing up for as quickly as possible.
So it's not about never falling off.
We must internalize this. The art of self-discipline is not about never breaking the chain of effort. It's about learning how to rebuild that chain faster.
So if you skip an entire day of deep work, the discipline choice isn't to punish yourself and skip the rest of the week.
No. The discipline choice is to show up the very next moment you can. Even if it's just for 5 minutes using the 2-minute rule, you get back on track immediately.
That rapid return is the key to maintaining momentum.
It's everything. Momentum is achieved not by avoiding mistakes, but by minimizing the time you spend in recovery. It's about choosing one more analytical pass, showing up one more time, choosing one more moment of alignment when everything in you wants to quit and seek ease.
That consistent return, that rapid rebuilding of integrity.
And that is how sustainable momentum is made. And ultimately, it's how your new disciplined identity is forged. That inner drive, the one that comes from self-trust and alignment with purpose, is the ultimate result of this inner shift.
It's a drive that's completely internalized.
Which means no one can give it to you. And crucially, no one can ever take it away. It becomes your permanent foundation for intellectual and personal freedom.
We have spent a significant amount of time today moving away from this suffocating idea of discipline as suffering, and instead defining it as an act of self-authorship, driven by a kind of compassionate purpose. Let's quickly summarize the core components of this inner shift before we leave you to begin your work.
Okay. First, we established that effective discipline is alignment, not punishment. It is an active demonstration of respect for your future self.
We learned that consistency is the master strategy. It is far more critical than intensity. Small, integrated steps are always superior to massive, sporadic efforts.
And most profoundly, we learned that trust is built through small, verifiable actions. This transforms self-discipline into that grounded confidence that declares, I do what I say I'll do.
And we gave you the necessary intellectual toolkit.
Yeah.
Trade your willpower for foresight, design your environment.
By reducing friction for the good, necessary habits, and strategically creating friction for the destructive, distracting ones.
Shrink the most intimidating tasks down to something manageable, and leverage the 2-minute rule to shatter inertia and build that critical momentum.
This entire framework, all of it, is designed to empower you with the realization that the power you're searching for isn't external.
It's not in the next motivational seminar.
It's not in a magical productivity app.
And it is certainly not in a burst of inspiration that may or may not arrive tomorrow morning.
The power is inherent. It is available to you right now.
You do not, under any circumstances, need to wait for motivation to arrive. That is the fundamental lie that the culture of ease is selling you.
You are your own spark.
You are your own structure.
And this is the final, compelling thought we want to leave you with. The deep realization that anchors the inner shift. And the knowledge we hope you take into your next deliberate action, your next challenging task, your next moment of choice.
You are the discipline you've been waiting for.